together during this very difficult time. President Trump in Phoenix, Arizona, Mayor Kate Gallego telling MSNBC what she hopes to hear from the president.
What I hope the president will say is that he's still committed to saving American lives.
Arizona has just under 9,000 confirmed cases of coronavirus and 362 deaths. The president will be touring a Honeywell facility that makes N95 masks. You're listening to USA Radio News.
It's totally normal to be constipated with belly pain, straining, and bloating again and again.
No way.
Maybe it's occasional constipation.
Maybe it's not.
You could have a chronic condition called irritable bowel syndrome with constipation, or IBS-C. Linzess, or linaclotide, is a prescription that treats IBS-C in adults. Linzess works differently than laxatives to help relieve belly pain and let you have more frequent and complete bowel movements. Individual results may vary. Do not give to children less than 6, and it should not be given to children 6 to less than 18. It may harm them. Do not take Linzess if you have a bowel blockage. Get immediate help if you develop unusual or severe stomach pain, especially with bloody or black stools. The most common side effect is diarrhea, sometimes severe. If it's severe, stop taking Linzess and call your doctor right away. Other side effects include gas, stomach area pain, and swelling. Maybe it's not occasional constipation. Learn more at linzess.com or call 1-800-LINZESS. You may be able to talk to a doctor online. Visit linzess.com, sponsored by Allergan and Ironwood.
The Senate Intelligence Committee is getting back to work. As we hear from USA Radio Network's Chris Barnes in Washington.
The U.S. Senate Intelligence Committee is holding a confirmation hearing at this hour for John Ratcliffe to be the next Director of National Intelligence. Speaking on Capitol Hill, Committee Chairman Richard Burr said Ratcliffe has been asked to lead the U.S. intelligence community during a time of profound challenge and great threats.
We expect that you will lead the intelligence community with integrity and ensure that the intelligence enterprise operates lawfully, ethically, and morally.
Burr, a Republican on that committee. A country music legend is spending his time today reading a children's book to kids over a Facebook Live event.
Hi, I'm George Strait, and today I'm going to read you a book, boys and girls. It's called Never Ask a Dinosaur to Dinner.
The virtual program was started last month to help entertain and promote reading. You're listening to USA Radio News.
Working from home? I'm Chad Dodd, veterinarian and consultant to Limp Bells. Here are some tips for keeping your dog fit while staying at home. Find 15 minutes twice a day and walk your pet at a decent pace around your place. Play hide and seek by hiding some kibble or favorite toys and letting your dog find them. If you have stairs and your dog is mobile, walk up and down twice a day for 5 to 10 minutes. Or better yet, try a power walk on your terrace or backyard for some fresh air. There are more helpful pet care tips at youmove.com, spelled youmove.com.
The way Sweden is handling the coronavirus is different than many other countries. No lockdowns, no shuttered businesses or elementary schools, no stay-at-home orders as well. So far, Sweden has reported just over 2,000 COVID-19 cases per million population. That's lower than the United States, the United Kingdom, France, Spain, and Italy. Sweden is still making sure people have proper spacing at restaurants, and they did ban gatherings of more than 50 people. Bjorn Lomborg is a director of the Copenhagen Consensus, which is a think tank over in Sweden. He tells Fox News.
Well, I think it's great that they're doing that. And honestly, Sweden is what you get when you ask experts to run the show. That's what they've been doing. Look, if we don't have a cure and we don't have a vaccine, which doesn't seem to be forthcoming, you really only have 3 options. You can just let corona rip through society. You can have moderate social distancing, which is what Sweden has done. And you can have a strict lockdown, which is what many states have done. Nobody's suggesting you should just let corona rip through. But likewise, you also need to understand that a strict lockdown is just simply not sustainable. You can't ask people to be locked down for months and months on end. And also, you're just simply pushing most of the deaths in front of you. And that's why I think it was inevitable. Sooner or later, we'd have to realize we'd all have to become somewhat like Sweden, a smart solution.
For USA Radio News, I'm Tim Berg.
The following is an America Matters Media production. The views expressed do not necessarily represent those of the station or its advertisers, although we think they should. But that's the opinion of America Matters Media.
America spends 5 to 10 times more on health care than any other country in the world. Then why does America rank number 43 worldwide for longevity? Third world countries such as Cuba and Costa Rica rank higher than the U.S. So what's wrong with healthcare in America? This is what's wrong. Our $3 trillion healthcare industry is focused on disease management, while 70% of our planet relies on traditional indigenous medicine that is focused on health optimization. Learn how. Join Dr. Dan Royal on the show The Royal Treatment, bringing you the latest information on the best of medicine, biotechnology, and pharmacology, as well as secrets from the past. These secrets have withstood the test of time and are being rediscovered today. In fact, indigenous healthcare practitioners are using them for the benefit of their patients who seek optimal health and wellness. Now, here is Dr. Dan Royal.
Greetings, listeners. I am Dr. Dan Royal, and you are now listening to The Royal Treatment. Today, we're coming to you live on radio and video. We've decided to try that for the first time, and if you are watching on video, you can see that we are conducting our radio show from the city of Las Vegas. We also have a guest who will be joining us today, Dr. Bill Singh, who did his research at Baylor University, and we're collaborating on a project you need to know about. We'll talk about that a little later in the program. But we do, as always, have much to talk about. Normally, we like to go through our obituaries and review people who died too young for diseases they shouldn't have had just last week. But we're not going to do that today. In the past couple of weeks, we've omitted doing the obituaries of those who ostensibly died from COVID-19, and that's because there seems to be some controversy as to whether or not that is the true diagnosis for their death, because so many of these patients, if not all of them, have comorbidities. This was found in an autopsy conducted by a physician in Hamburg, Germany, in all of his patients. What's very curious about this COVID-19 is that the young people, so those under 18, even under 30, virtually have zero effect from the virus. That means healthy people are not getting the virus, even in New York City, where they claim to have had so many deaths from the virus. And we're going to talk about that a little later in the program. First, I'd like to thank our sponsors. We have a couple of sponsors. Number one is the Turtle Healing Band Clinic. That's where I practice here in Las Vegas, Nevada. Turtle Healing Band Clinic and the First Nation Medical Board, which is our second sponsor, they're both under the jurisdiction of the Crow Nation, the Crow Tribe of Indians. In fact, we just renewed some of our LLCs, our business entities with the Crow Tribe this last week. We have several entities there. As you know, you can file an LLC with your Secretary of State, and the Crow Tribe of Indians has a constitutional government, including a Secretary of State, where you can file an LLC. An LLC simply determines the domain where you will defend yourself if called upon to do so, in this case, in tribal court. That's where we would prefer to be as opposed to civil court. One of the reasons we made that decision, it's also a lot less expensive. So if we have an LLC in the state of Nevada, it's $400 per year, whereas we can file in Crow Nation for $100 and renew for $25 a year. But the entities that we are filing there all have to do with things we're doing that relate to the Indian Nation, including the two I just mentioned, Turtle Healing Band Clinic and the First Nation Medical Board. Although these are very unique entities, these are actually nonprofit entities. We call them an IRC 7871. That's a nonprofit entity that reports to the Indian Nation. And these entities were created for the purpose of economic development, for the protection of alternative medicine, its preservation, its promotion as well. As you may know, those of you who like to have access to alternative medical therapies and products and practitioners, well, they are becoming more difficult to find. They need a licensing entity. Many of them do not have it. We've mentioned before in this program that, for example, in the state of Nevada, the naturopaths do not have a board. And so they need a home. And that's the case in about 27 states here in the country. And then physicians who wish to practice alternative medicine, such as myself, need dual licensure in all 49 states. Actually, there's one state in Arizona that still has a homeopathic board where they can be dual licensed that allows them to practice under the jurisdiction of the Indian nation and use medical alternatives. Well, we like to get this explanation done at the beginning so you can understand a little bit about where we are coming from. So one of the things I want to share with you when we come back from the break are some of the benefits of a supplement. This is a supplement called CoQ10. Many of you may already be taking it. We'll talk about it in a little more detail when we come back. We want to leave you with some positive information that you can use to improve your health, and this is a good one. So, for example, I got some labs back on a patient today, and one of the things that we check in his labs is the beta natriuretic peptide. This is a biomarker, so to speak, that can be used to assess whether or not a patient has a degree of congestive heart failure. And that's one of the things for which CoQ10 is particularly indicated. You may not know that there are such biomarkers, but the beta natriuretic peptide, or BNP, is one of those. There's also another biomarker we got back on a couple of patients today called lipoprotein A. Lipoprotein A is a biomarker for lipids or blood fats. It's a biomarker for inherited risk of blood fats. And believe it or not, there's only one thing that is known to be able to treat lipoprotein A and lower that. I will share that information with you when we come back from the break, along with a little more detail about CoQ10. And don't forget, we're going to be having a detailed discussion about COVID-19, some of the problems that are so curious about whether or not it's real or a hoax, and if it's real, what we can do about it, because it appears that vaccination is inevitable for all of us around the world if it's up to the World Health Organization, which is an independent entity, not an industry, an entity controlled by and owned by a communist country. Why are we taking our cues from a company owned by a communist country? I'm Dr. Dan Roy. You're listening to The Royal Treatment. We're going to continue our discussion when we come back from the break. Stay right with us.
Would you like more energy? A photon sound beam may be the solution you need. A photon sound beam uses electrical energy to ionize gases that generate ozone and light to enter your body directly through the skin. The energy produced by a photon sound beam assists your body's healing process. It does this by improving the electrical energy of the body's cells. Get your photon sound beam by calling 702-444-LUCKY. The optimal cell voltage for the body's cells is between 70 and 100 millivolts. When cell voltage decreases below 60 millivolts, the cell becomes weakened and diseased. For example, cancer cells usually have a cell voltage below 30 millivolts. Call 702-444-LUCKY and order your photon sound beam today. A longer, healthier, and more vital life is only made possible with optimal cell voltage. The photon sound beam has also been found to be effective in relieving pain, inflammation, and joint stiffness, as well as improving immune function. Call 702-444-LUCKY and get a free quote for your photon sound beam. That number again is 702-444-5825.
As an 18-year-old, I let my mistakes kind of take over my life. I was 0.5 credits away from completing high school, and I didn't do it.
10 years later, at age 28, Jackie finished her high school diploma.
When I found out that I was pregnant, I know that I had to do something for myself if I wanted to make her a better person and provide a better life for her. My family never stopped pushing for me to be better because they knew what I could become and who I could become as a person. My support team is amazing. The educational director, my sister, and even my 7-year-old daughter has just been more than the support that I could ask for. I've been given an opportunity, and I'm just thankful for it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
As humans, we ask ourselves all kinds of questions. But what if we were forced to ask ourselves a question every day that affected the outcome of the most basic things, the most important things in our lives? The question is, what is your sexual orientation or gender identity? And the answer is the difference between keeping your job or getting fired. The answer is the difference between staying in your home or getting evicted. The answer is the difference between receiving medical treatment or not. Because in 31 states, it's legal to discriminate against people based on their answer to this question. LGBT Americans have the right to say I do, but they don't have the same basic rights as everyone else. Get the facts at beyondido.org. Brought to you by the Gill Foundation and the Ad Council.
This is America Matters Media on AM 1180 KCKQ, a Lotus broadcast station. The power of radio since 1967.
To join the conversation, call 844-790-TALK. That's 844-790-8255. Now back to the show.
We are back to the show, my friends, and you are listening to The Royal Treatment. My guest today is Dr. Bill Singh, and he'll be joining us a little later in the conversation during our program as we talk in more detail about the pandemic that is on everybody's mind. But first, we have some business to attend to. First, I need to let you know if you need to contact us, you can reach us by calling the Turtle Healing Band Clinic at 702-562-1454. That's 702-562-1454. Or you can always email us here at the Turtle Healing Band Clinic. It's thbclinics@gmail.com. THB for Turtle Healing Band, and then clinics plural at gmail.com. Well, before the break, I mentioned that there's only one supplement that can lower or is known to lower lipoprotein A, the risk factor biomarker for lipids. When I say lipids, we're talking about cholesterol, of course. And that supplement is niacin, also known as vitamin B3. Now, you can get it in niacinamide, so you don't necessarily get the flush. I know there are some people who actually like the niacin flush, although I've had patients who've taken the B vitamins we've had in the past, a B complex. It's very well absorbed, depending on how it's complex. In this case, it was complex with microclusters and very well absorbed, even at 25 milligrams, and it gave patients a niacin flush. You know what they did? Because they're not familiar with niacin or the effects of B3, they went to the emergency room. So if you're taking B3 or niacin, please understand that one of its effects is a rash, and of course the rash increases heat throughout your body and it makes you itchy, and it goes away in about 45 minutes. As I said, some patients like it, but on the other hand, there are some patients that are frightened to death because they don't know what's going on. Now you're educated and you know, and that won't happen to you. Well, we want to talk about CoQ10 because it's one of the things that helps to lower another biomarker that we mentioned called beta natriuretic peptide, BNP. And think about that for a minute. But just remember BNP. It's a marker for congestive heart failure. I mentioned it because I just got labs back on a patient this morning who is taking it for his congestive heart failure, and his numbers are looking much better. Here's some of the things I want to share with you about CoQ10. It's the first drug or nutritional supplement to improve heart failure. When we say CHF, that's what we're talking about, congestive heart failure, and its mortality in over a decade. CoQ10 decreases all-cause mortality, not just from CHF, by half or 50% in a randomized double-blind trial. We know how much science likes that, although it doesn't sound like they're doing any kind of trials with our vaccine that's coming to protect us all against the supposed virus that's all around the world, thanks to some bat in some market that some Chinaman ate. Well, according to the results of a multi-center randomized double-blind trial presented at the Heart Failure Congress, now this is going back in 2013, CoQ10 decreased all-cause mortality by half. It is the first drug to improve heart failure mortality in over 10 years and should be added as a standard treatment. According to the lead author of the article, or study, I should say, Professor Svend Age Mortensen. He's in Copenhagen, Denmark. The main annual meeting of the Heart Failure Association of the European Society of Cardiology, CoQ10 occurs naturally in the body and is essential to survival. At least that's according to Professor Mortensen. CoQ10 works as an electron carrier in the mitochondria. The mitochondria, which is very important in actually surviving the supposed symptoms that patients are exposed to from COVID-19 or 5G, depending on your take, to produce energy, and is also a powerful antioxidant. We're talking about CoQ10, coenzyme Q10. It's the only antioxidant that humans synthesize in the body. Did you know that? Coenzyme Q10 levels are decreased in the myocardium. That's your heart muscle of patients with heart failure, with the deficiency becoming more pronounced as heart failure severity worsens. CoQ10 is critical to maintain the energy of your cells, or I should say the mitochondria in your cells. Now, statins are those drugs that are used to lower your cholesterol. Well, let's bow our heads as we give homage to the statins. They're the first drugs that we take our patients off of. Why? Well, because there are many other natural ways to lower cholesterol if we're concerned about it. But lowering cholesterol has consequences. Nobody ever feels better with their cholesterol lower. In fact, they don't even know about it. You don't know. It's just a numbers game. But you need cholesterol to make all of your hormones. So messing with your hormones can have some side effects. One of those common side effects of statins is it causes muscle aches and pains. But statins are used to treat many of these heart failure patients because they block the synthesis of cholesterol. But these drugs also block CoQ10. That can cause a CoQ10 deficiency. Did you know that? Not only do they interfere with your cholesterol production, but they interfere with your synthesis, your body's natural production of coenzyme Q10, which, of course, can worsen your heart failure condition. Now, Professor Mortensen goes on to say that CoQ10 is the first medication or nutritional supplement, not a prescription, to improve survival in chronic heart failure since ACE inhibitors, at least according to the studies. Those are blood pressure medicines, and beta blockers, which slow your heart rate, in more than a decade and should be added to standard heart failure therapy. He added other heart failure medicines block rather than enhance cellular processes and may have side effects. Well, of course, all drugs have side effects. There's no way about it. Supplementation with CoQ10, which is natural and safe, corrects a deficiency in the body and blocks the vicious metabolic cycle in chronic heart failure called the energy-starved heart. Think about that. CoQ10 is present in food, such as red meat, plants, and fish. So it's available to carnivores as well as vegetarians, but its levels are insufficient to impact on heart failure. Patients with ischemic heart disease who use statins could also benefit from CoQ10 supplementation. Dr. Morton, should say Professor Mortensen, said, "We have no controlled trials demonstrating that statin therapy plus CoQ10 improves mortality more than statins alone. But statins reduce CoQ10, and circulating CoQ10 prevents the oxidation of LDL, low-density lipoprotein, one of those cholesterol components, molecules that statins are trying to inhibit. And it does so effectively. So I think, says Dr. Mortensen, that ischemic heart patients should be supplementing statin therapy with CoQ10. Well, when you take a supplement, you need to make sure you get the best quality product. And the CoQ10 that we use is combined with coconut oil. You don't want it in a dry form. It needs to be in an oil. It could be soybean oil. The original studies done by the father of CoQ10, Carl Volkers, were done with soybean oil. But combining it with coconut oil or vitamin E makes sense because they're not going to be going rancid, and they will be better absorbed because it is an oil-based molecule. I had a patient this morning who has been taking some supplements to lower his homocysteine, another biomarker. Now, this one's for cardiovascular disease, and there are two particular B vitamins you can use to lower your homocysteine, which indicates you're at risk for cardiovascular disease. The two B vitamins that you can use to lower homocysteine are, number one, vitamin B6, and number two, vitamin B12. The problem is you have to get good quality products, preferably professional grade. Now, the patient that came in said he's tried products in the past and has had no effect in lowering his homocysteine level. When I asked him where he got his products, he said he got them off of Amazon. Well, you don't really have any quality control over that. They need to be good quality products. Why do I say that? Because we don't have any problem lowering homocysteine in our patients. I told you earlier about the patient who has congestive heart failure, who has a BNP that was elevated, and that's improved with CoQ10, but he also had homocysteine that was elevated and improved simply by taking the B vitamins 6 and 12 that I told you about. It makes all the difference in the world to have a good quality supplement. And then I had a conversation with my patients this morning about COVID-19 and how serious we should be taking it. There seems to be a lot of controversy on this subject. So, for example, our governor in the state of Nevada says that when we leave our homes, we should be wearing a mask. These kind of suggestions don't make medical or scientific sense. I understand that they're politically correct, but when you go outside into the wild blue yonder, you're least likely to be catching a virus or exposed to a virus. Why are you wearing a mask? Our government never cared about us before. When the air is polluted, it told us to take a mask. So that doesn't make a lot of sense. And when we're in the company of other people, we're told we should be social distancing, which, as I mentioned last week, World Health Organization is saying we should be physical distancing. They want to change that term because when this was defined some years ago, physical distancing was no hugging or kissing. The 6 feet arbitrary space between humans is only something that was recently manufactured. But if you're keeping your distance from patients, then why are we having to wear a mask? More than that, the World Health Organization recently came out and said people who are testing positive for antibodies to the virus may actually be testing positive to other strains of the virus, such as the alpha beta non-virulent strains that we've been exposed to for 60 years and nobody cared about until now. I'm Dr. Dan Royer, listening to The Royal Tree. When we come back, we're going to have a more detailed discussion about COVID-19 with our guest, Dr. Bill Singh. Stay right with us.
Did you know that 4,000 years ago, the Earth's magnetic field was 5 Gauss? Over the last 165 years, scientists have measured the Earth's magnetic field and found that today it is only 0.5 Gauss, a decrease of 90%. However, your brain needs the Earth's magnetic field to restore energy to your cells. The good news is that the magnetic sleep pad can give your brain what it needs to restore energy to your cells. Order your magnetic sleep pad by calling 702-444-LUCKY. Think of the magnetic sleep pad as a powerful engine in your car. It gets you up hills faster and with less wear and tear. With the magnetic sleep pad, your brain now has the energy it needs to repair your damaged cells, make enzymes, enhance immunity, and protect you against electrosmog, all while you sleep. Get your magnetic sleep pad by calling 702-444-LUCKY. Studies have shown that the magnetic sleep pad can help improve pain, sleep, fatigue, energy, and concentration. Get a free quote for your magnetic sleep pad by calling 702-444-LUCKY. That number again is 702-444-5825.
Hey, Dr. Phil here. I help people solve difficult and trying personal problems every day on my TV show, but there's one problem that's just got me stumped: childhood hunger. Nearly 16 million children in America struggle with it. That's 1 in 5 kids who may not know where their next meal is coming from, despite the fact that there's more than enough healthy, nutritious food out there to feed them all. Now, I don't know about you, but that is unacceptable to me. Luckily, the Feeding America network of good people is out there collecting surplus food and giving hope to hungry children and their families at local food banks all across the country. But let's face it, they can't do it without your help. Join me in supporting Feeding America and your local food bank at feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting. A teenager. Learning the lingo.
Today I'm going to help parents translate teen slang. Now, when a teen says something is on fleek, it's exactly like saying, that's rad. It simply means that something is awesome or cool. Another one is totes. It's exactly like saying, totally, just shorter. As in, I totes love going to the mall with Becca. Another word you might hear is jelly. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous, as in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will think you're, rad, just the same. To learn more, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
This is America Matters Media on AM 1180 KCKQ, a Lotus broadcast station. The power of radio since 1967.
Are you shy and don't want to talk on the air? Text us your questions or comments to 775-237-2266. Now back to the show.
Back to the show. Thank you for sticking with us. We're now in the second half of the Royal Treatment. And I'm Dr. Dan Royal, the host of the show. If you need to reach us, remember, you can always call us here at the Turtle Healing Band Clinic. THB Clinic at 702-562-1454. That's 702-562-1454. Or email us at thbclinics@gmail.com. That's THB as in Turtle Healing Band Clinics, plural, at gmail.com. We do a lot of interesting things here at the Turtle Healing Band Clinic. So, for example, I just got back some results on patients today that we tested for cancer antibodies. We call that the AMAS test, the anti-malignant antibody serum test, that lets us know how the patients are responding to treatment. And it's an interesting test because, well, cancer, according to this test, can be predictable up to 19 months in advance. We also check for nagalase. We have a patient today we got a test back on who has an elevated active Epstein-Barr. It's EBV early antigen, and her nagalase is elevated. This prevents the immune system from being able to recognize and fight a virus or cancer, and it's important that we neutralize the nagalase by lowering it and putting it into a normal range. This can be done with an oral product known as Orasal, or it can also be done more aggressively with an intravenous product called salicinium. The other thing that we just sent an email out yesterday to our patients in regards to the CV pulse, that cell vital pulse. We're the first clinic in the United States to have the cell vital pulse. Well, why is that? Well, the cell vital pulse is the most powerful PMF, or pulsing electromagnetic field, in the world, being used medically today. But it's not currently FDA approved in the United States. However, we are one of the distributors for the product, and we're able to get a demo unit in our clinic. What is it indicated for? Well, everything in the lower extremity. In fact, I had a conversation with a medical provider in Nebraska today, and we talked about what it can be used for. It's particularly good for any kind of bladder weakness. They did a study over the University of Rome and found that it was virtually 99% effective for eliminating that condition, but also can lower the size of your prostate. It can improve your circulation. It can help with hip pain or pelvic pain. And it can have some systemic effects with depression and sleep and so forth. What's interesting with this particular form of treatment is you can actually feel the treatment. And after at least 3 sessions, you will start to see clinical results as well. Isn't that right, Dr. Bill?
Yes, absolutely.
Dr. Bill is he's also experienced the CV pulse. Dr. Bill is a practitioner in the Turtle Healing Band Clinic, and he does some things here that are very, very useful. So, for example, here I have in my hands a syringe. This is, well, plasma. It is actually what we call platelet-rich plasma. Maybe you can see it better if I put it in front of my shirt. And this is one of the things that Dr. Bill does. He treats patients with platelet-rich plasma for joint conditions. He also does some DNA biofeedback for us using the Spooky tube. And we're collaborating on a project to help patients who don't want to get vaccines, because vaccines in and of themselves are a bit of a hoax, the way that they're given by being injected intramuscularly. Way back in the early 1850s, when we had cowpox, there were a couple of different types of vaccinations that would be given, but the one vaccine that was 100% effective was given intradermal, in the skin, not intramuscular. We're working or collaborating on a project where we can provide our patients natural antibodies, because if you have natural antibodies against the supposed COVID-19, you don't need the vaccine. Years ago, when I went to medical school, if you had antibodies to hepatitis, you didn't need the vaccine. The purpose of a vaccine is to give you antibodies. So I'm going to turn some time over to Dr. Bill and tell us what you think about all of this. Start with the COVID-19. What do you think is going on?
With reference to COVID-19, I think we need to go back to what is the principle of vaccination? How does it work? Immune system that God gave us is one of the smartest thing in our body. It can see any foreign antigen, big, small, little, tiny, and make antibodies to it. That's its reaction, whether it wants to keep it inside the body or throw it out. Vaccination is basically done to, sometimes when you get exposed to a disease, you get naturally immune. But we think you don't want to wait for that to get infected and then get immunity in your system. So what we do is we take some components of the pathogen or the virus or the bacteria or whatever we want to vaccinate against, and then inject it by different ways into the body. So to get the body prepared for a future challenge, when you get an infection, it can take care of it, throw it away, because it make antibodies. Now with the COVID-19 situation, it's a very tricky, because COVID-19 does get into the body through a particular receptor, but after it gets into the body, it also plays a little dirty game. It dysregulates the immune system. It goes into certain type of cells that do not actually help with the immune response. It helps with the immune pathology. It makes antibodies to its certain components that you are not supposed to produce. So I think the current situation is that whatever vaccinations are being developed, most of them are based on some kind of DNA or mRNA. Now, just imagine that you have a messenger RNA going into a cell of the human body, trying to produce the viral components, first of all, in the cell, and then immunize the body, prepare the body against the virus. That's going to take a long process, and there are millions of steps between that. So where it can fail, your guess is as good as mine. I mean, in a million-step process, you can fail it anywhere and then flop. It won't work. Give you a good example. Recently, they tested a vaccine in China. They took the whole virus, COVID SARS-CoV-2, inactivated with a chemical, and injected into the monkeys. The monkeys that has a good dose of the vaccine, just like the polio vaccine, were protected very well. 12 out of 12 survived the challenge when they infected them with the virus. But they had a group where they purposely put a very low dose of the vaccine to see what happens with that. All 4 monkeys basically died because the immune response was so small that it didn't protect the monkeys, but it enhanced the disease condition. So that's called immune enhancement, when you have low levels of antigen, low level of antibodies. I think this is what the COVID-19 does in the humans, but it puts the immune system in a disarray that it produces antibodies against undesired components of the virus. So it confuses the system. Now, how does that happen? The virus is very tricky. Once it goes into the body, it goes into a cell. We have basically 3-4 types of different cells that initiate the immune response in our body and regulate it. One is very prominent is the macrophage. Macrophage can produce all kinds of inflammatory cytokines when it picks up a pathogen, a virus or a bacteria. Then there are other type of cells like eosinophils and neutrophils. They do the same thing like a macrophage. They produce a whole plethora of cytokines, like a storm. Then there's a special type of cells. They are actually designed in our body naturally to induce a proper regulated immune response. These are called dendritic cells. Now, these dendritic cells have the ability, they can migrate, once they see the antigen, they can migrate to the lymph nodes which are the factories of making immune response. That's where the whole immune response is manufactured and given to rest of the body. Dan mentioned that the skin injections are more effective because this is where they are. These cells are sitting there. They pick up the antigen, not only the skin, mucosal surfaces like your intestinal tract, respiratory tract, lung tissue. They're sitting there and they're waiting for these antigens to come and attack, pick them up, migrate to the lymph nodes and make antibodies. And they can regulate all that bad antibody production in the body very effective. So this is where we need to hit, this is where we need to go. Find these cells where they are in the body and try to get our vaccine in these cells. If we want to make a vaccine, and earlier on a question was raised, why is our system failing? Why we are spending billions of dollars, but still our system is way behind the rest of the world. This is the reason we're spending millions and millions of dollars developing absolutely useless vaccines, rich of side effects. You know, after the polio vaccine, is there anybody who can tell me who developed a good, safe, effective vaccine with this new technology, recombinant DNA technology? None, zero. We haven't seen any. They've been using all these vectors, adenovectors, vaccinia vectors. They haven't produced any vaccine with that. SARS-CoV has been known for 18 years. They haven't seen any success with that. How come they now see in 12 months they would produce a vaccine? It's a lie.
Well, part of the problem also, we have about 100 companies who are working on creating a vaccine. We don't really know what's going to come out of this competition.
That's right.
And one of the things
all of these are working on a, they're using the most where they can spend more dollars. They're not looking at the simple way of producing like Salk did the polio vaccine.
Yeah,
there are simple ways to produce a vaccine with low budget. The country doesn't have to spend zillions of dollars. I mean, most of these companies like Johnson & Johnson, Moderna, $400 million to develop a vaccine.
Yeah, one of the problems you mentioned on the show before is if they have any live virus in them, those are the people that spread the vaccine. That happens with the flu. I'm Dr. Dan Roy. You're listening to Dr. Bill Singh. We're going to continue our discussion about COVID-19 when we come back from the break. Stay with us.
Did you know that stem cells are present in all of us, just waiting for an opportunity to regenerate your organs and other body tissues? Studies show that your own stem cells are released into the bloodstream following a trauma. However, a plant-based supplement called RBC Blend has been found to increase stem cells in your blood without trauma. Order your RBC Blend by calling 702-444-LUCKY. One study showed that participants who used RBC Blend increased stem cells in their blood by over 100% after only 2 weeks. Increase your stem cells with RBC Blend by calling 702-444-LUCKY. Stem cells are the ultimate anti-aging treatment. For example, they can be used to improve facial appearance, skin tone, and hair growth. Stem cells can also help with muscle aches and joint pains. Increase your stem cells with RBC Blend by calling 702-444-5825. Could RBC Blend be what you need to achieve optimal health and wellness? Find out today and order RBC Blend by calling 702-444-LUCKY. That number again is 702-444-5825.
I spend a lot of time in the garage, but even more time in the rain, sleet, and mud. In '95, I helped tow your moving trailer. In '05, I helped you get out of a ditch. Yeah, I know I'm a bit rusty, and sadly in '09, it was sparks from me, your handy chains, dragging behind your truck that accidentally started a wildfire.
Sparks from dragging chains can start a wildfire. Spark a change, not a wildfire. Visit SmokeyBear.com. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
1 in 3 adults in America have pre-diabetes, but most don't know it. To let people know it can be reversed before it becomes type 2 diabetes, professional basketball player Julius Randle is doing everything in reverse.
I'm only dunking with reverse windmills. I drove the whole way to practice in reverse. I don't recommend it. This move's called the reverse shuffle. I do recommend it. And it took me months to learn how to speak in reverse, like this. Years 10 almost for diabetes type 2 with living Ben has mom my. In other words, my mom has been living with type 2 diabetes for almost 10 years. So together, we want to say to the 84 million Americans at risk, exercise and healthy eating can help reverse prediabetes. Start by taking a simple 1-minute risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Brought to you by the Ad Council and its Prediabetes Awareness Partners.
Bet he can't say that in reverse.
This overload. Shannon Lawson here. Join us for the Nevada Radio Roundup, Fridays at 2 p.m. A good news variety show all about the local scene. The Nevada Roundup, Friday at 2.
Want to expand your advertising dollar? Sponsor this or any America Matters program by calling 775-827-8900, extension 2. Now back to the show.
We are back to the show. I'm Dr. Dan Royal. You're listening to The Royal Treatment. And we are talking with Dr. Bill Singh, who is one of our tribal providers here at the Turtle Healing Band Clinic. And we're talking about COVID-19. The controversy about vaccines and ostensibly the vaccination to come. There are some people who believe that we shouldn't be allowed to leave our homes for 2 to 3 years until we have a vaccine. The last time SARS-1 came around was in 2003. Vaccine didn't come out until 2005. Now, there was a problem with that vaccine, which may be one of the reasons we're hearing about rushing the corona SARS-2 vaccine into production before more time can pass. What was the problem? Well, Dr. Bill alluded to it earlier in our previous segment. That is, when the animals were vaccinated with SARS-1, and then they were re-exposed to the virus to determine its efficacy, they all got the respiratory virus that was supposed to prevent and died. The problem here in the United States is if it does not undergo a COVID-19 vaccine for coronavirus SARS-2, if it doesn't undergo safety and efficacy testing, we're like lab rat animal experiments. And let's say that we get the vaccine and die. What are you going to do about it? Well, in the United States, here's what you're going to do about it. Nothing. That's what you're going to do about it because our United States government has passed laws to protect big pharma against product liability. You get a vaccine, you die, too bad, so sad. So we can only hope that it will be safe. However, there is an option. If you wish to avoid the vaccine, because according to some of the self-proclaimed authorities like Mr. Bill Gates, who has no background in medicine or science, he's claiming that we're all going to need a digital certificate if we want to travel around the world to prove that we have been either vaccinated or that we have antibodies. What is the purpose of a vaccine? The purpose of the vaccine is to give you antibodies. We mentioned that in the previous segment, but there are other ways to do it. Now, currently, Dr. Bill mentioned that the vaccines that are being given are, well, they're not very effective. They're a bit of a hoax themselves. They're being given intramuscular, but there are other ways to do it that are more effective. I mentioned the cowpox vaccine back in the 1800s. The people who had 100% immune protection were those who received the vaccine intradermal. Now, you can also get a vaccine by inhalation through your lungs. Did you know that? We're also working with a colleague who believes that it's possible to develop an oral capsule by which one could ostensibly develop antibodies against COVID-19. We're working on a project Dr. Bill mentioned where we can harvest blood from the patients, obtain their dendritic cells, and then expose that to a spike protein, give it back to the patients, and then give the patient a few weeks, check them for the antibodies, and if they're positive, guess what? They don't need the vaccine because they've now proven that they are recovered, quote unquote, from COVID-19. Was that about right, Dr. Bill?
Yes, absolutely. I think the key here is to get the vaccine to the right place in the body and to the right cells. If the vaccine is in the wrong hands, like macrophages, neutrophils, and other cells, they're going to produce unwanted reactions in the body. There's a phenomena that is now very well recognized called immune enhancement. I'll give you an example. A few years back, when I was with SmithKline working on a vaccine for feline infectious peritonitis, which is caused by a coronavirus, we got a modified vaccinia vector from NIH. Dr. Bernie Moss developed it for HIV vaccine, which because of the HIV antigen drift mutations, we couldn't go far with it. So that vector is available, and I know now that one of the companies is using that modified vaccinia virus as a vector to put the coronavirus in, to immunize humans. Now, guess what happened? We immunized cats. They were prognosed to die in 1 year. They died in 2 months after the vaccination. Why? Because the vaccinia virus helped the virus to make antibodies that were out of control, out of specificity. They were not required. They were made too many of them. It's called immune enhancement. Immune enhancement means that these antibodies help the virus or any other antigen get into wrong type of cells and quicker, faster. So there you go, it begins to kill the host. So we want to get antigen in the right type of cell. For example, dendritic cell would be ideal. And these cells are localized on mucosal surfaces of the body, skin, and they go pick up the antigens. They're like policemen. They pick up the antigens and migrate to the immune system making factories, the lymph nodes of the body, the whole lymphatics. So that's what we need to do. If you try to put in antigen, which has to be, first of all, manufactured in the body, you may not have enough antigen manufactured by the body, you run into difficulty, run into problems. Then, at the top of all that, we have to use adjuvant systems to boost the immune response. And that is even worse. We all know that aluminum hydroxide causes all kinds of side effects, including Alzheimer's in people. We all know what hepatitis vaccine does. Of course, we have a need for all these vaccines to eradicate. Polio is a good example. Smallpox is a good example. Tuberculosis is a good example. We've been able to contain them to a degree by using vaccination. Polio has been the most successful one in all this. But you have to develop strategies to vaccinate the mass population and the right way, right procedure, right route of immunization. I mean, we've learned through the years, past 60 years, we learned that needs to be done. But I don't know, I don't understand how somebody like Dr. Fauci can say we are going to have this vaccine within 12 to 18 months. How on earth can it is possible? Who's going to look at the safety of those vaccines? And we don't know what we haven't seen any products from these vector systems in the past 40 years. None. No vaccine at all.
Yeah, that's in addition to the fact that we have 100 companies competing for the vaccines.
Right. They're all using the same approach. It's the same approach.
The vaccines that seem to have done very well over the years are the smallpox. That was given intradermal, and the TB test. We don't really hear about those anymore.
Exactly.
Polio is a controversial one because back in 1959, they knowingly administered polio vaccines to millions of Americans, even in spite of the fact that the vaccine had been contaminated with the cancer-causing agent. Now, they knew this, but the excuse of the pharmaceutical company for allowing the vaccine to go forward into unwitting, innocently deceived Americans was they had a deadline to meet and they had investors to satisfy.
Also,
So,
they used live polio virus in the second set of vaccines. The first one was dead, killed, inactivated vaccine that performed very well. But then, it was a question of the level of immune response made by those dead antigens. It takes an effort to do that. You need a lot of adjuvants and all that to make an immune response. The ideal vaccine would be like close to an infection state where you have the virus or the pathogen or the bacteria growing into certain type of cells that sample it and process the whole bug. They actually kill it before they process it and then produce the right antigen to present it to the immune system, which doesn't happen in a killed vaccine. So for that, you have to use adjuvants, different kind of, some very harsh adjuvant systems that you have to use to make an immune response.
And we're trying to avoid all of that. I'm Dr. Dan Roy. You've been listening to Dr. Bill Singh. This is the Royal Treatment, and we've been talking about COVID-19 and means by which you can avoid the coming vaccination if you can demonstrate that you are recovered from COVID-19. This can be done naturally. We'll keep you informed and updated as we continue to move forward with our project, which will become a study. We want to see if it's effective, if we can, in fact, harvest blood from our patients. Now, we need a certain amount of dendritic cells from that blood. So it may be close to a blood donation you might give with the Red Cross. That's 450 milliliters. We need about 400. The more, the better. We need to make sure we get the right amount or the minimum amount of dendritic cells in order for this study, this vaccine production to be effective for the patient. It takes a few days to grow in media, and then we give it back to you, the patient. Now, you can develop antibodies to COVID-19 or the coronavirus anywhere within 4 to 40 days. We'll be testing around 3 weeks to confirm that you have antibodies, but technically, if you have antibodies and you can demonstrate that you are recovered, or maybe you're asymptomatic and you have antibodies, good for you. You don't need the vaccine and all the adjuvants that might come with it. Many people know that there are many things put into vaccines that perhaps don't need to be there and you don't want, like mercury, aluminum, and who knows what else might be added with the coming vaccinations. I think people, particularly Americans, hopefully have a healthy distrust of vaccinations and their government, particularly since the government had created a Vaccine Injury Compensation Act and now has gone so far as to protect the pharmaceutical industry against any product liability whatsoever. That doesn't seem right. Well,
I was so happy to hear some good news on the vaccine front. There are some vaccinologists or immunologists are waking up now. They're picking up the old BCG, the tuberculosis system, which has been able to induce a very good immune response, what we desire for COVID-19.
Perfect. Well, thank you for being with us.
Because why it does? Because this BCG picks up the right cells of the body.
No word in the English language is less convincing than probably.
Are you sure we should get matching tattoos on our first date?